Hello again, Gen Zers and Gen Z TV. Welcome to episode 1 of my life hacks video here on IGTV, YouTube, and Spotify. At the time this video will be recorded, we have sort of uploaded all of our episodes on Spotify now. So for those of you guys that are listening to on the go and don't want to have YouTube open at all times, feel free to catch us on Spotify. Now, without further ado, today's topic plays a really close part in my heart, given that this is one of my strongest and sort of like it's a passion that plays really close to me, and I hope that you guys enjoy and sort of learn a thing or two from what I'm about to share. Now, without further ado, today's topic is travel hacks for your next road trip.
Do it big, Balenciaga oversized. Need that whip, mad black with suicide. I won't miss, I put on that time for you.
Now, it would come to no surprise that tip number 1 would be organizing all the important stuff. Now, when I do my road trips, I like to keep all the important stuff in sort of separate bags. Now, a lot of people would think that would be a little bit confusing, but the only reason I would do this is you don't want to have all your important stuff in the one bag. Now, more often than not, you'd find yourself sort of struggling to keep your things secure during your road trip, and who knows, some stuff could be stolen from your car, you could forget things, and the last thing you want happening to yourself is having all the important stuff in the same bag. Now, what I tend to do is have, obviously, you've got your wallet and stuff obviously in the main bag. Now, depending on where you're going, you could also need a few additional documents as well. Sometimes even those national park passes that you buy along the road, maps and stuff, those are also considered important things. Now, I also like to have numbers of my insurance company and numbers to my the people that can tow my car, just in case for emergencies. I have them separate to my phone as well. The main reason I do that is because if you have them all, if you depend on your phone the whole time, you never know when your phone is going to die. And believe me when I say phones do die while you're on the road. You don't always have power to sort of play with. So one main thing that I want to share is, like I said, organize all your important stuff. Keep your documents such as your driver's license, bank cards. Don't have them all in the same wallet. Because you never know when you're going to need them. Now, there will be a time when you will lock yourself out, and believe me, I almost have once. Luckily, I had sort of my spare keys in different bags. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, I do drive a Ute, so having the access to be able to open my trunk or my tray anytime, I guess, without having without needing a key, or getting access to it without needing a key, but just sort of lifting up the cover. It's sort of an advantage for me, right? So I sort of plan that by bringing my spare keys with me during my trips, just because you never know when you're going to lock yourself out. All right. So now, guys, for the road trip virgins out there, for those of you guys that don't know anyway, most national parks in Australia require you to go through either a road where you pay a little toll booth at the beginning, or you got to get a pass somewhere there, just so the ranger doesn't sort of ticket you when you get there. Now, these national parks and passes and toll booths can be prepaid before you go on your trip, right? Now, making sure that you have those sort of readily and accessible as much as you can, maybe keeping them in a little folder. Now, I do like to bring a little plastic clear folder with me during my trips. It will have all the maps I need and all the passes I have in one place. Now, the only reason I do that is because just in case someone does check on you, you're sort of prepared, right? But yeah, now, in light of this whole toll booth thing, now, I've noticed during my trips is a lot of these booths could either have really outdated POS systems, meaning that EFTPOS may not be available, so having cash is king. Now, what I tend to do is having at least $100 in sort of like a secluded spot in my car, right? I either hide it underneath my seat, hide it inside the glove box, which is a big cliche, so I try not to do that as much, right? Or keeping it in a seat, underneath a seat somewhere, or maybe even inside the little crevices of your car, right? Just making sure it's safe and making sure that not everyone can get to it is one main thing. Now, by cash is king, there has been many times when I've had to pay for parking using coins. So making sure you don't have a bunch of $50 notes stacked in an envelope somewhere, making sure that you sort of break them down, maybe having 10s, 20s, and 50s, and even coins. Coins are super important during your trip. So I promise you guys, if you're going on big road trips, such as maybe like an interstate road trip, when borders open up again in Australia, that you guys should and must bring coins, because I'm telling you now, there will be a time when you're stuck in a parking and just sometimes if you go through regional towns, a lot of the a lot of the booths and stuff aren't really updated, right? So making sure you've got cash is going to be super beneficial. Now, speaking of remote, another lesson that I've learned over the last few road trips I've had was making sure that you've got a physical idea, like a mental idea, not a physical idea, sorry, a mental idea of where you're going and some key landmarks to look out for, because there were a few times when I was driving around and I was alone, right? Which is the scariest thing. Driving around, and I did manage to get lost a few times, because there are times when your GPS on your phone, which everybody relies on during road trips, you lose signal, right? Now, I guess one way to get past this is either having, like I said, landmarks memorized, and making sure that, if there's something important that you can remember, perhaps like a particular rest stop or like a sign you gotta sort of keep in your mind, that would be really helpful, because you can sort of find your way from there. Now, another way that I've sort of gone around this is buying one of those GPS units that are offline. And I guess another thing that I could share as well is, if you guys don't know, you can actually download the maps pre-download them prior to going. Now, what that does for Google Maps, I'm not sure about any of the other ones, but for Google Maps, you can sort of pre-download it and have them stored in your phone. Now, guys, we've covered sort of the basics, right? The essentials. Now, what a lot of people don't actually think about is thinking about bringing spares for your car. Now, I sort of have a checklist to go through, right? I'm just going to go through it mentally, because I may miss something. If I do miss something, I will be including it down in the description below, or I will probably just put it somewhere in the video, right? Now, look, in a few of my road trips, what I try to do is having spares for everything. So main spares like your spare tire, checking and making sure that has air, because I've seen people sort of get stranded on the road and they're flat. The flat tire that they have, they can't change it, because their spare is also flat, right? So the last thing you want happening to you is, if you got something as simple as a spare tire blowing up on you during the road, sometimes it's a lot quicker and faster, and maybe even more efficient, right? And cheaper in some cases to just get to just change your own tire. So making sure you've got enough spares for your car, such as oil, coolant, which is some of the main stuff that you'll need. I've also bought myself sort of water, just in case the coolant runs out or your car overheats or something. Or look, water is always important, right? You could also drink it, so having a lot of that is also really great, because it's not only good for you, it's also good for your car, for the hotter climates, right? Now, another thing that I bring with me is tools. So tools to obviously work on your car, just in case you need to. Spare batteries for my flashlight, to name a few as well. Flashlights, headgear, headlamps. I pretty much bring everything. I sort of, whenever I pack for my road trips, I make it seem like I'm going to be gone for a long time, whereas, I guess the main advantage and the best thing about road trips is you can never really overpack. Especially if you're doing a solo trip, or maybe just with a few friends, you've got so much space in your car, right? So why waste it? And it's better to overpack in most cases than underpack. Now, guys, this also deserves a good mention. Now, for those of you guys that bring a lot of tech with you, such as myself, my drones, my cameras, my phones, I do pack myself a lot of cables, spare chargers, spare batteries, like I've already mentioned, and I also bring a laptop with me just in case I sort of want to back my clips up. Now, what I've learned in the past is making sure that they're stored away from sun would be really, really helpful. And if you're going to a really, really cold climate, such as what we did in Kosciuszko, one thing I've learned is, now I don't know if you guys know this, but flying drones in sort of cold climate is not actually possible, and I didn't know this, right? So I should have researched it, and there was so many times during our trip when the drones was just telling me that it was too cold to fly, which I was never ever exposed to, right? So yeah, that was something really strange, and I was super upset that I couldn't take as much photos and videos in Kosciuszko, just because the drone was constantly just saying that it couldn't fly. So that's one thing to check up on. So I think you can actually buy these little heat packs that you can put in your bag. Now, keeping them sort of warm, keeping your technology as warm as possible will help keep its batteries sort of, good, and also, it will prevent it from being too cold, because I thought it was always just going to be, who would have thought that technology nowadays, that there was a too cold setting, and, so that's my little rant about that. Now, guys, I can't stress this enough. Now, what makes a good road trip is obviously the playlist, right? The road trip playlist is what everyone calls it. Now, one thing that I urge you guys to do. If you guys are planning your road trips after lockdown lifts, after the restrictions lift in New South Wales, that you make sure all your multimedia stuff is downloaded. Now, downloading movies before you leave your house, downloading all your playlists before you leave your house will save you guys from the drama that the signal runs out. Now, I know a lot of people would say, oh, just get Telstra, right? But look, guys, if you take there's going to be some areas where Telstra doesn't even cover the signal, right? And you don't want to be sort of driving around and not listening to anything, because I find that a little bit too weird. So make sure you guys download all your multimedia files, because honestly, guys, you will thank me later for it. As always, guys, I hope you guys are staying safe during this pandemic. I hope you guys have learned a thing or two from my very, very short travel hacks video. I will be uploading longer ones and maybe even doing a vlog style as well on some of these tips and tricks. Now, I know that some of these were more common. I will try to share something more unique as we go with these life hacks series. Now, as always, hope you guys are staying safe again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.